Hey there, this is Alexis Knight. Welcome to True Crime, the Court of Public Opinion. I'm your host, guiding you through cases that have moved through the courts and reached a conclusion, but left the public divided. These aren't your typical cut and dried cases. These are the ones where the facts may be clear, but the truth? Well, that's another story. And now, imagine this. It is a quiet summer morning back in 1892 in the small town of Fall River, Massachusetts. A young woman calls out in distress. Her father has been brutally murdered in their home. Within minutes, the gruesome discovery of her stepmother's body follows, leaving the household and community in shock. The murders are gruesome. A hatchet is the weapon of choice, the blows so savage that the faces of both victims are barely recognizable. But what happens next is even more shocking. The prime suspect? The daughter of the house, Lizzie Borden. Lizzie, a respectable and wealthy woman, is accused of committing the unthinkable. But despite motives, opportunity, and circumstantial evidence, she is acquitted of the murders. The court's decision leaves the nation divided. Did Lizzie Borden escape justice because of her social standing and privilege? Or was she the victim of societal prejudice in a case that was never as clear-cut as it seemed? Well, in this episode, we're going to dig into the story of Lizzie Borden. We've all seen it out there. There have been movies, stories. This is a case that's been whispered about for over a century. Was justice truly served? Or does the truth still elude us? What happened here? Stick with me to uncover the chilling details, and then you can decide for yourself. Did Lizzie Borden take the axe? The evidence of August 4th in 1892 unfolded in a way that seemed almost ordinary, until they turned into one of the most gruesome murder cases in American history. That morning, 32-year-old Lizzie Borden and her live-in maid, Bridget Sullivan, were at home with Lizzie's father, Andrew Borden, and her stepmother, Abby Borden. According to Lizzie, she was downstairs when she heard a cry from her father's room. Rushing upstairs, she found Andrew Borden lying on the couch, his face nearly unrecognizable from the hatchet blows that had taken his life. Moments later, the household discovered the body of Abby Borden upstairs in the guest room. She had been struck multiple times, her skull shattered by the same weapon. The brutal nature of the murders shocked the town of Fall River, Massachusetts. The Bordens were a wealthy and prominent family, and violent crime was almost unheard of in their community. But as investigators dug deeper, suspicion quickly fell on Lizzie Borden herself. Witnesses reported strange behavior from Lizzie in the hours leading up to the murders. She claimed she had been in the barn searching for fishing weights when her father and stepmother were killed, a story investigators found hard to believe. Furthermore, just days before the murders, Lizzie had attempted to purchase prussic acid. This is a type of poison from a local drugstore. Though she was denied, the attempt raised eyebrows. As the investigation continued, evidence against Lizzie began to mount, though much of it was circumstantial. Bridget, the family maid, testified that Lizzie had asked her to leave the house multiple times that morning, which some interpreted as an effort to keep her away during the murders. Another critical piece of evidence came from Lizzie's own behavior after the murders. Witnesses claimed she was unusually calm and composed, even as the bodies of her father and stepmother were discovered. More damning was the discovery of a dress that Lizzie burned in the kitchen, in the stove, just days after the murders. Lizzie claimed the dress had been stained with paint, but prosecutors argued she was destroying evidence. Despite these clues, there were no witnesses, no blood on Lizzie's person, and no definitive proof tying her to the crime scene. This lack of concrete evidence left room for doubt and fueled public speculation. The trial began in June of 1893, drawing massive crowds and media attention. Even back then, the courtroom became a spectacle, with journalists from across the country reporting every detail. Lizzie's demeanor during the trial was a major point of contention. To some, she appeared cold and detached, while others saw her as a victim of a biased system, targeting her simply because she was an unmarried woman living in a patriarchal society. The prosecution built its case around motive and circumstantial evidence, painting Lizzie Borden as a woman driven by resentment and greed. They argued that Lizzie's relationship with her stepmother, Abby Borden, was contentious at best. Witnesses testified that Lizzie often referred to Abby as Mrs. Borden rather than mother, signaling the cold distance between them. The Bordens' wealth was another key factor. Andrew Borden, Lizzie's father, was known for his frugality, despite the family's substantial fortune. The prosecution suggested that Lizzie feared her inheritance might be compromised if her father's money went to her stepmother. The burned dress became a focal point for the prosecution. They claimed that Lizzie destroyed the dress because it was stained with blood, a theory that resonated with the jury, despite the lack of direct evidence. Lizzie's attempt to purchase poison days before the murders further fueled the suspicions, even though no poison was ultimately used in these killings. Prosecutors argued that Lizzie's calm demeanor following the discovery of the bodies was unnatural and indicative of guilt. They contended that a person truly shocked by the violent deaths of loved ones would show more visible emotion. Now, Lizzie's defense team, led by a skilled group of attorneys, they focused on dismantling the prosecution's case point by point. They emphasized the lack of direct evidence tying Lizzie to the murders. No witnesses saw Lizzie commit the crime, and no weapon definitively linked to the killings was ever found in her possession. The defense also attacked the credibility of the timeline presented by the prosecution. They argued that it was nearly impossible for Lizzie to have committed these murders, then cleaned herself up from all of the blood that would have to be there, and then stage an alibi in such a short time frame. Another critical aspect of the defense's strategy was portraying Lizzie as a victim of societal biases. They argued she was being unfairly targeted because she was an unmarried woman living in an era where women were often seen as suspicious if they defied traditional roles. The burned dress. This is also something they contended that had a perfectly innocent explanation. This was stained with paint, not blood. Furthermore, Lizzie's attempt to buy poison was dismissed as irrelevant, given that no poison was used in these murders. Ultimately, the defense successfully planted seeds of doubt in the jury's mind. Lizzie's composed demeanor, they argued, was a sign of her innocence and her strength, but not of guilt. And now this next piece of information will be interesting to you because this case, the Lizzie Borden trial, it was one of the first cases in U.S. history to be sensationalized by the media on a national scale. And that's amazing because we see it every day here now. They would be overwhelmed at that time to see all of the information we see now. But the media was still influential. Newspapers of the time, they played a pivotal role in shaping public opinion, with their headlines painting Lizzie as both a tragic heroine and a cunning killer. The trial's every detail was reported, from Lizzie's outfits to her facial expressions, fueling public fascination and outrage. Much of the media coverage reflected the gender biases of the time. Many articles questioned whether a woman was even capable of committing such a brutal crime. Others speculated that Lizzie's unmarried status made her an outlier in society, further fueling suspicions about her character. The intense media scrutiny turned the trial into a spectacle. with courtroom seating becoming a coveted ticket. Journalists camped outside the courthouse, and the public eagerly consumed every detail, even as the legal proceedings struggled to provide any clarity. And the verdict, left the nation divided. When Lizzie was acquitted, some celebrated the decision, believing the evidence against her was just too weak for a conviction. They viewed Lizzie as a victim of societal prejudice, a woman unfairly targeted because she didn't conform to traditional expectations. But others, however, they were convinced of her guilt. To them, Lizzie's wealth and social standing had shielded her from justice. They argued that if Lizzie had been a poor woman or even a man, the outcome would have been different, far different. The public's fascination with Lizzie Borden did not end with the trial. After her acquittal, she became a social pariah in Fall River. The townspeople shunned her, convinced she had gotten away with murder. Lizzie lived out the rest of her days in relative isolation, living behind a legacy that continues to spark debate more than a century later. The lack of a definitive resolution here is what keeps the Lizzie Borden case alive in public memory and interesting to us still. Despite the trial, the murders remain officially unsolved. To this day, historians and true crime enthusiasts continue to pore over the details, offering their theories about what really happened in the Borden household. Some believe Lizzie was innocent, pointing to the possibility of an outside intruder, or even Bridget, the maid, could be an alternative suspect. Others argue that Lizzie's actions, the burning of the dress, the trying to buy the poison, and giving inconsistent statements, they point directly to her guilt. The mystery of Lizzie Borden highlights the limits of the justice system when faced with circumstantial evidence and public pressure. It also underscores how public opinion can preserve a case's legacy even long after the courts have spoken, or even long after the courts wish it would just go away. The Lizzie Borden case didn't just captivate the public during her trial. This became a cultural phenomenon that continues to inspire fascination today. Lizzie's story has been immortalized in books and movies, TV shows. There's even a macabre children's rhyme. It goes like this: Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. And when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. While inaccurate, the actual number of blows was fewer. The rhyme reflects how deeply the case has embedded itself in public consciousness. The enduring mystery, combined with Lizzie's enigmatic personality, has kept people debating her guilt or innocence for over a century. But the cultural impact of this case goes beyond folklore. It highlights how public opinion can shape the legacy of a legal outcome. Even though Lizzie was acquitted, many still believe she was guilty. Others view her as a system of systemic biases, both in the courtroom and in society. The Lizzie Borden case raises another important question. How much does a court ruling truly matter if the public continues to judge? And what does it say about our justice system when a case like this continues to linger in the public's imagination? We're talking for generations. This case is so old that I actually wanted to get into some other things in this episode here that we don't normally get into at this level. But this case has been alive for so long. And what are the effects of this case overall? I mean, this Lizzie Borden trial, it was more than just a courtroom drama, right? This was a cultural watershed moment that revealed the growing power of public opinion in shaping justice. For the first time, the American public witnessed how a high-profile trial could dominate headlines and fuel debates and create divisions that extend far beyond the courtroom. And this is an important moment because of this. We're all involved in things now in the present here. We have social media. Everything's coming at us, whether it's true or not, right? We have the information out there. We are involved in anything we want to be involved in. That was not the case before the Lizzie Borden trial. So this was a major moment. In the 1890s, newspapers were the primary source of information, and they played a pivotal role in shaping public perception of the Borden case. Sensationalist headlines and vivid descriptions of this crime captivated readers, of course, and this was across the nation. Journalists didn't just report on the trial. They started to create a narrative, turning Lizzie Borden into a larger-than-life figure. Some articles portrayed Lizzie as a victim, as we know, of societal prejudice, and others painted her as a cold-blooded killer. And this duality sparked intense debates. Readers were forming opinions all over the place, and based on the coverage they were consuming. The media frenzy also set a precedent for how future high-profile cases would be reported, shifting focus from the facts to the spectacle. Public opinion in the Lizzie Borden case highlighted a critical tension, a gap between legal outcomes and societal beliefs. While a jury found Lizzie not guilty, the court of public opinion remained deeply divided. Many believed her wealth and privilege played a role in her acquittal, while others argued that societal biases against women fueled the suspicion against her in the first place. This case showed that the public's perception of justice does not always align with the legal verdict. This is something we know today, not so much back then. It introduced the idea that public opinion could influence the legacy of a case. It could keep it alive in collective memory long after the courts have rendered their decision and tried to pack it up and put it away. The Borden trial also revealed how media involvement could put pressure on the justice system. With the public watching so closely here, every decision made by investigators, prosecutors, and defense attorneys, they were all scrutinized. And this level of attention forced the legal system to consider not just the facts of the case, but also how those facts were being perceived by the public. What would the public think of this? In some ways, like I said, this case marked the beginning of what we now recognize as trial by media, where public opinion shaped by sensational coverage. Let me be clear here. The public opinion that was shaped not by the public thinking on their own here, creating their own thoughts with knowledge that they sought out and know for sure. It was shaped by sensational coverage. Coverage given to the public based on what they thought would be interesting to keep the public watching and possibly direct how they're thinking. How are the facts going to be perceived by the public? Well, maybe by how they are told to the public. And this is just a fact, and a fact that came alive with Lizzie Borden. This trial didn't end, its influence didn't end with its verdict. It set the stage for other cases in the future, where media coverage and public sentiment would continue to play critical roles. We have the O.J. Simpson trial. That definitely took on a lot of public opinion. Casey Anthony, Jussie Smollett, the interplay between media and public opinion and justice. Since Lizzie Borden, it got turned on, and it's only grown more pronounced since then. The Borden case serves as a reminder that while the courts aim to deliver impartial justice, they don't exist in a vacuum. Public opinion has the power to shape not just the outcome of a trial, but its place in history. Okay, well, now we come to the ultimate question. What do you think? The Lizzie Borden case isn't just a story of gruesome murders or a controversial trial. This is a case that asks us to reflect on the justice system, the power of public opinion and the way media narratives can shape our understanding of the truth. Was Lizzie Borden truly guilty, as many believe, or was she a victim of circumstance? A woman misunderstood and persecuted by a society that could not look beyond its biases. And even if she was innocent, how do we reconcile the fact that her acquittal did little to sway the public's belief in her guilt? Think about how this case was reported and debated. Imagine the pressure on the investigators, the jury, and even Lizzie herself. This was a trial that played out not just in the courtroom, but on the front pages of newspapers, in the parlors of everyday Americans. It's a dynamic that has not gone away. It's only grown stronger in today's age of instant headlines and viral commentary. So now consider this. What would the Lizzie Borden case look like if it happened today? Would the public rally around her as a victim of systemic bias? Or would the constant spotlight make it impossible for her to ever get a fair trial? How much have we really learned about balancing justice and public opinion in the years since this case captured the nation's attention? Cases like Lizzie Borden's remind us that justice is not always clear-cut. The courts may deliver a verdict, but the real trial, the one fought in the hearts and minds of the public, it never truly ends. As you think about this case, ask yourself not just what happened, but what it means for us today. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's most fascinating mysteries in True Crime, the Court of Public Opinion. Stay safe out there and stay curious and ask those difficult questions. And until next time, this is Alexis Knight.